Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris.
The total of all human evil.
We've got Vince.
The name is actually Ekniv.
Oh, very good.
That's how you spell my name backwards.
Yes, backwards Vince. Excellent. Chris, what was yours in reference to?
A Suprema story in 52B.
That's right. Hi everybody. This is our first two-parter, the second half of our very first two-parter. We're talking about Supreme by Alan Moore from, when was this from again? Mid-90s? Yeah. So if you haven't listened to the first part, please be sure to go and do that, because we're kind of going to finish off like this first year of Supreme that Alan Moore was writing. The storyline was called Story of the Year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just get into it. So last time we left off where it was like a big cliffhanger, and I thought that this was going to be sort of the big bad villain of the whole thing, and we're going to kind of start to wrap up the storyline and give more clues. But it turns out it was just kind of some random dude. It was Optilux who, was giving this light. They were stuck in this light world, and boy, science nerd in me had some problems with how light operated in this world. But that's okay. It worked out all right. But then it just kind of went back to being what it was before, like kind of more done-in-one issues talking about a history, which I really loved, but it's not what I expected. I don't know, Vince, did you have the same feeling?
Yeah, because I thought, we're building to Optilux, and the way that Chris broke this down for us, I was like, okay, like we're gonna like lollygag with good stories for the first 8 issues, which check out our previous episode, and then it's gonna be like building to something with Optilux, and that wasn't the case. But you know what? I was pleasantly very, very happy with all of these issues we did, and I actually, Rick Veitch, unsung hero of all the past stories in these issues.
Yeah, all the like flashback stories.
I really dug the art style for this one. This was kind of like 70s panel structures, kind of like it reminded me of Neil Adams a bit. Chris, is that what it's supposed to evoke for me?
I think there's some Jim Starlin in there too, especially, I mean, if you want to talk about the issue by issue here, we should mention we finally find out why Supreme left Earth.
Right.
That's right. Why was it again? It was because of this dude, right?
Well, what was that guy's? Was it Jack-o'-lantern or something like that?
Jack-o'-lantern? Oh, I don't. So I remember them mentioning like, oh, that's why, but it wasn't a super clear reason for me. What was it? Why? What happened?
A lot happened here. Like, this is a dense book. I'm gonna have to reread this one again.
I might have to read it again because I think a lot of stuff happened too quickly, and I was kind of like, the art was really nice, and so I was mainly just looking at the pictures, and I was like, oh my god, they're having a big long fight sequence, and cool, mention that's why I left, but I didn't really pick up on the exact reason why.
Well,
that's all right.
The issue starts. They end up being transported to basically one of the worlds in the Kabbalah from Promethea. I don't know if y'all have read that.
Oh shit, this is a crossover with Promethea?
But that's basically what's going on. They get transported into this light world, and they hint at it because Glory's like, oh, I guess being like the child of a god pays off. And he's like, pays off more than you realize, dummy. Because they're actually, as an immortal who can transcend into the world of symbols, she gets, I guess, immunity from manta rays that are attacking them.
Yeah, like manta rays that are made out of light. So they just call them rays.
Yeah, light rays, manta rays. And he alludes back to, I guess, I mean, it seems like he just kind of needed a break, but it's told in the style of Jim Starlin or Neil Adams style flashback of him being like, oh, I've had all these crazy 60s adventures. Judy Jordan learned Kung Fu and got involved with the women's rights movement.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I love the art in this thing. It's why I kind of maybe started to not pay too much attention to the words because they were getting a little repetitive. So I think I probably have to go back.
And that's why I wanted to talk about Rick Veitch for a second because, I mean, he did all the 40s and 50s art too. Like, he was incredibly flexible for the entire run of this book. The backgrounds are very, and the panel structures are very Starlin, but I got the Neil Adams vibe from like the character poses. Because he did kind of like a weird zoomed in, like kind of under angles a lot, or at least in the stuff I'm familiar with Adams.
Right. And And I think Jack-o'-lantern, and I'm not a DC expert, but I think he's supposed to be the Spectre when all this is happening.
That would make sense with all the green netting and kind of cape and stuff. That would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, he beats Optilux, breaks out, blah, blah, blah. I actually really liked the next issue. I think this might have been my favorite one of the entire series.
Is this the love story one?
The love story one,
This one was my favorite, too. That's what my exact notes said.
It was adorable.
I loved the cliffhanger of the issue leading into the love story issue where Supreme is like, I don't like that look. And then Radar, the Hound Supreme, is like, he's in heat.
He's in heat. Mm-hmm. That dog knows when another dog's in heat.
There's nothing better than dogs that think they are people and talk like that.
Oh god,
he talks very matter of factly, like he's aware of the world, but then also uses dog terms.
It's great.
Gosh, there was a Crypto the Dog Supreme TV show a few years back. I need to just sit down and watch that. I think it'd be amazing.
Was it really? Oh, like a cartoon, right?
Yeah, it was like a cartoon on Cartoon Network or something. I bet it's terrible, but I bet it's also awesome.
It's gotta be. It's not made for us, man. But I'm sure it's worth a look. You report back here. Let us know, and then we'll Crypto back. But yeah, this whole thing is him meeting with this new artist or this new writer that he's going to be working with on the comic, whatever the Wonder Woman version of. I was starting to lose track because
this is Diana Dane,
right?
Who rhymes with Lois Lane because she's a writer.
There's the DC version of all the heroes, right? There's like this Supreme verse version with Supreme and like his Professor Knight or whatever. Yes. And all those people. But then there's also this comic book that they're writing, and so they've got their own analogs as well. I forget what the Wonder Woman was for that world, but they're writing that comic. What was it?
It's like Warrior Woman or something, right?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Okay. So Warrior Woman, they're working on Warrior Woman, and it's like, God, the sexual tension in this scene is like, whoo, what's going on? They gotta fuck or what? They don't. But they sort of go through the whole thing, and he's like talking about what type of character they would like, how to write this romance of the comics, and so we're getting these flashback sequences to all of Supreme's loves, and it was very adorable. And that kind of written with that same thing. Again, big props to Rick Veitch for changing up the style again and doing like these old timey romance comics, very super dickery kind of feel to them too.
Yeah, there's a classic cover that I feel like this story is based on where it's Superman at the graves of the 3 women that have loved him.
Oh, boy.
Gosh, one of whom is a mermaid. I don't know why she got buried with humans.
Yeah, that happened.
That's where we're drawing the line, really?
You got buried.
I love this one because it's like, no, like superheroes can't have love. And it's like, let's flash back to a 50s style thing. And he's washing the car while Judy Jordan's holding 2 different babies in Supreme costumes, drinking from a bottle. And then Radar, the Hound Supreme, is holding a leash like, no one's going to walk me. It's just like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, and this was so like the commentary on it with them like talking about writing comics was just such a fun commentary on that kind of thing as they were doing it. I really enjoyed this. It was this could have this is it. If you're gonna read one issue, number 50.
I like when she nags Supreme into crushing coal into a diamond for the neighbors.
The chores they make this poor guy do. Oh, just crush that coal into diamonds for the neighbors. I mean, it's fun.
The whole joke is that like in 50s, like women were such a drag in comics. Like they were just like they ruined your life, man. At least that's the joke. I hope that's the joke.
Well, there were so many covers, and it was more of a Batman thing, honestly. But there's so many covers where like Robin's like, like Batman's gonna get married. Like, what are you talking about?
Just like out of nowhere.
But I mean, Lois Lane was always going to try to like tie him down and make him a boring domesticated man.
Make an honest superhuman alien out of this guy.
Which doesn't really make sense when you think about the fact that she's like this, his girl Friday, like brassy 40s journalist.
I know.
In the golden age, but then by the 50s, she's like, marry me, Superman.
Yeah.
I still think Terry Hatcher's my number 1 Lois Lane, but that's me.
She was a good Lois Lane, I think. I'm with you.
The next story, so then there's more sexual tension.
Oh yeah, they don't have sex because she's like, oh, but this wouldn't work. How could anyone ever marry a person who Supreme was lying to this whole time about his secret identity? And so that flusters, not Supreme, whatever.
Ethan
But
Crane.
that flusters, yeah, it flusters him to be like, oh my god, I'm a superhero with a secret identity. Oh, I gotta get out of here.
So then he talks. So then we go to a story about him imagining an angel. I don't know how he got this angel from his imaginary world that then he married, and then she died somehow.
Yeah, I don't know.
She crossed over from the imaginary world.
I didn't like this story. This was my least favorite of the three. I really
That's
like.
all right. Yeah, well, I forget. They were all very similar because they were so tongue-in-cheek that I was just like, okay, he married another one, and this one has its own troubles that are unique. Oh, he married another one. This one has its own troubles.
And then he married the Supremeverse equivalent of Wonder Woman. Not Supreme's Awesome or Dazzle Comics version of Wonder Woman / this character.
Right.
Glory.
Yeah.
Glory, yeah. The next one was...
They actually made a decent comic about starring Glory in like 2013 or 14. I don't know if it's still going. Yeah, they totally redesigned it. It has very little to do with Rob Liefeld's horrible design.
So good. So they're trying to make it better. That's something.
This was
not
just a pleasant issue, though. I really liked it.
The next one was really pleasant too. Number 51 was.
Oh, can we take a step back though and talk about issue 50? Because issue 50 was an anniversary issue, and we discover in the notes that Jeff Loeb was the editor-in-chief of Awesome Comics. Briefly,
yeah. So there was this letter at the beginning of this issue that's like, "Wow, 50 issues! What a ride it's been." And then, but I'm just like, wait a minute, you've only been publishing this story for like 3 issues, like 2 issues, right? I don't like because they started at Image and then they jumped to something else and then they jumped to
Awesome or Maximum Comics.
Yeah,
and it says thank you very much. Eric Stevenson's here, which isn't he involved with Image now? And Jeff Loeb. It's just a kind of a time travel thing, and I really like this. Like he puts like, I love the story Alan's been doing, and for the foreseeable future, he's going to be doing it a long time. And I'm like, or 6 issues.
Yeah, not that long.
Not that long. Before this whole thing falls off the rails and the whole comic publisher goes under. But it's just funny to me to see like some of our favorite or not so favorite writers be like editors in chief of small fly by night publishers. I think Mark Waid was the editor in chief or publisher of Boom Comics for a while.
Yeah, Boom.
Mm-hmm,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's not. Does he still have that job?
He left
it for like 2 years.
He left Boom Comics when he started doing more Marvel again, like Daredevil.
Yeah, and he's been doing a ton of writing recently. So yeah, I don't think he's got the time to be editor in chief.
I think Boom had like all the Disney licenses, and then the second Disney bought Marvel, like all those licenses, like DuckTales and everything, because there was DuckTales comics and Incredibles comics, and Wall-E comics, and they all.
There's definitely a timer attached to all of those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there was a nice little sort of art gallery in the background, which was pretty neat. That's nice of them to celebrate 50, right? But yeah, 51 was like my almost favorite because here's where these are the last 2 issues, 51 to 52. This is where the story like really gets kicking. But also, it's another pleasant issue just going back and meeting Supreme's Rogues Gallery. Like they're going through his little museum place. He's showing off to
Judy Jordan.
Who's he showing it off to?
That's
right, Judy Jordan.
Because Judy Jordan's going to factor into later issues.
That's right. It's so, like his childhood sweetheart, right?
Yeah, so
his girlfriend.
Yeah, so issues 50 and 51 do something that I usually don't like from comics, which is a lot of telling and not showing. Like, he talks about Immerpuss, which is the reverse Supreme. So Supreme spelled backwards is Immerpuss. He mentions him in the issue 50, just like... He talks about past adventures. We don't see them at all. He just happens to casually mention them. And even this issue, which I really love, and I don't understand why I like this and I don't like others, is he's just going through a museum talking about his different rogues and all the different villains he's fought over time. And just like talking about them, never showing flashbacks, never showing anything, just talking about them. And somehow it works for me in a way that usually it doesn't. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because his details are so rich and honest, and you're taking it off of, stuff that you kind of already know from the comic book world, you know. So it's like I don't have to see it again. It's sort of like, hey, here's our take on this thing, and here's the interesting little wrinkle. Cool. Let's move on to the next one.
And it's not purely just in text. It's also partly visual because they are in a museum, so you can see all the stuff that they're talking about, like the Mr. Mitzelplick character, where like you see a character that looks like that, and he's like, I forget his name, but you're like, oh, that's who he is.
Well, and then like
Zaz or something like that.
Supindo, the Simian Supreme, and just those kind of things. I really like it. And you know, and it's mildly just disturbing enough that a few of the Wax Museum characters switch places throughout the issue. You're like, oh, something's fucked up that's going on here, and it ends up not being that. It's like we were just tricking you, Lois. Story.
There was,
which is again classic Super Dickory.
Classic Super Dickory. There's also that like weird mirrory world where he's trapped, where we kind of get our first taste of what's really going on. What's the big finale? And it's this nice little old lady. We've been seeing her with her daughter or granddaughter or whatever, and they have been coming for Supreme. And she's got all this crazy power, and she tosses him into the mirror dimension where he's trapped with the bad guys now. And we'll find out this little old lady was Darius Dax, the Lex Luthor analog the whole time. We'll find out more next issue.
Possessing Judy Jordan, who had already forgot that old lady was Judy Jordan in the present day.
Yeah, that old lady was also like, that was Judy Jordan in real life now. She'd grown old and had a daughter that drew him that picture, right? But that daughter was a robot, with all sorts of crazy powers. Yeah, good stuff.
It's nice and disturbing though here at the end because like his text is also mirrored reverse, so he can't understand anything that's being said to him from the other side of the glass.
Right. Yeah, it's a really cool little detail.
It's really cool. I really liked this issue, and now we're like, oh shit, Darius Dax is here to save the day. Well, not here to save the day. Here to like bring the story home.
Yep. The last issue.
Were y'all surprised by this? Did I spoil it last time?
No, I mean, like, obviously, when everything was foreshadowed in the first issue we read of, hey, is Darius Dax alive in your universe? And he goes, no, I think he's dead. It's like, oh, good. Like, I really like that. But obviously, that's I read enough comics, enough stories.
He was coming back, right? Yeah.
But it was just delayed enough, and like that Optilux story like threw me enough to think maybe Darius Dax isn't coming back, because Alan Moore is ballsy enough to never pay that off.
Exactly. You don't know with that guy, right? So yeah. But I'm glad he did in a nice creative way where he died, but he like uploaded his consciousness into like some dust that he put on a book, and then Judy read the book and breathed it in, and she was reprogrammed to be Darius Dax, and he like jumps into some other bodies and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
And this story did like literally the thing that I love for comic book endings, which is one, Supreme is stuck in the mirror universe, which is his prison where he's put all his villains. So he has to fight all of his villains, which is a great way to end a book. And then two, his greatest villain, Darius Dax, is having to be faced by all of Supreme's friends without Supreme, which is also a story I love. So like Suprema and the Hound Supreme and all the allies, they're all having to team up to fight Darius Dax, knowing that they're not good enough to fight him. Only Supreme can fight him. And I really like when those kind of things are taken off the table. I think that's a great storytelling device, and it made me really excited to see both of those in this issue.
Yeah, and it was told so well, going back and forth. This is the issue where I was just like, I'm glad that Chris made us read everything leading up to this, because sort of all these characters that we met in flashbacks here and there, like they all come back, and so it really does make the whole thing very worth it. Really enjoyed that detail. Or that aspect of everything. And this was like a big old 80-page thing, too. I guess it must have been like a front and back, because it's split up into 52A and 52B.
Moore wanted it to be an 80-page special, like classic style. And the realities of publishing were like, yeah, no. So.
Oh, I see. So just 52A and 52B. Yep. Yeah, that's
just buy it twice.
A weird little cheat. Yeah. There's no 13th floor. Come on, we know this. So yeah, but this was
and
really
also
good.
I really like Vince was talking about the stuff he really liked, but I also really like the story point of Darius Dax. Part of the reason he hates Supreme, and it's similar to Lex Luthor hating Superman for losing his hair, is Darius Dax is like, this idiot hayseed. Just his dog wanders into this, where a meteor fell, and he gets superpowers. All I got was cancer and died.
It is a touching story. You kind of feel for the guy. Yes, this thing kind of ends with him like jumping. Jarius Dax has jumped into some other bad guy's body, and like Supreme's beat up, and nothing's looking good. But we also get some really fun backup issues here. I kind of like the backup issues more than the story itself. There was a good one of the Mouse Supreme.
Oh my god!
Collecting people for his baseball team. It was a 50s heroes versus 60s heroes baseball team. So he was getting all the different versions of Supreme. I thought this was adorable.
I really liked 80s Grimdark Supreme, who was just drawn like Marv from Sin City.
Yes.
From Sin City, 100%. I think that might have to be the image for this episode. It was just so good. So perfect.
And did they call him 80s Grimdark Supreme? Was that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Hey Grim 80s Supreme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not since Alan Moore's Dour Devil in like 1982. Has he taken such cheap shots at Frank Miller? But I love them all.
They're so good.
Dour Devil?
Lovely,
Yep. Dour Devil. It's like 5 pages long and hilarious.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was good stuff. One of my favorite things that old comics would do that I'm so glad they did is have one of those cutaway shots of the Citadel Supreme and like go into detail as to what all the different rooms are in the base. I don't know why. It's so cheesy, but I love that stuff.
I had Star Wars books full of schematics when I was like 11. Oh my god, if I was 11, this would have been like
I love
everything.
It. I thought you were going to say what I loved was the Supreme National Flashlight Battery Inspection Day comic.
That was so funny. It was just like a quick one-pager, but like so perfectly matching those styles.
I was surprised there weren't like any Hostess Pies ads.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to. Maybe that would have been a little too much to have both, but I was like, I want him to like throw a pie at Optilux or something.
Yeah.
No, there's a fake Thunderbolts Hostess ad, which I think is still my favorite. I don't ever need to see another Hostess ad again. It was just too good.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about because the payoff is Baron Zemo's gross face eating a pie.
Oh my god, it's so delicious.
Yeah. I mean, now that I'm looking at this, like I'm like, there should have been like an ad for a crappy Game Boy Supreme game.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
With an LJN, equivalent.
Oh yeah.
So it's good. Rainbow quality.
There was another backup story with Suprema, the sister, and how she was on this hick planet or something, and like nothing, like she's not strong enough for anything, and she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And it turns out it was all her friends, like testing her with weird tricks, and that was like the ultimate of all the super dickery stuff. It was just like really wearing her down and like destroying her self-esteem.
She had to arm wrestle a baby.
She had to arm wrestle a baby to a standstill. Oh.
But as we found out, that baby was the total of all human evil.
Yeah, good for her. That's a lot.
That story was a retelling of a Norse myth that was then turned into a backup of a Thor comic. They would do like Tales from Asgard stories, and since it was just an actual myth of like trickster figures being like, that was actually the Midgard serpent you lifted up, and like that was, like you thought you were drinking that soup, but actually you were draining the world's oceans. So it's just that story exactly, but it was really.
What else did we have? We had the meeting with Supreme's first meeting with what's his name, Professor Knight.
Yes.
That sounds like such a bad guy name. It's hard for me to remember it because it just seems like, I don't know, Professor Knight seems evil. I don't know. Anyways, it's Superman meeting Batman for the first time,
Yeah.
and it's before they remembered. It's when they were kids at a theme park. This was okay. Fun little story.
Yeah, I only like the payoff of it of like, why didn't we remember it? And it's like, oh, because this was the river of myth that makes everyone forget.
Yeah,
leads to
that
the
payoff
underworld.
was. Yeah, I was thinking about it the whole time. Like, I mean, the more you go into this, the more I'm like, how could you not remember this? So yeah, I'm glad they explained that.
Yep.
There was also
These caves are part of the mythical underworld, says Supreme, and it's like, oh, of course.
There was also a really fun like newspaper strip comic, like 2 weeks worth. So really just like one quick little story where all the other comic book characters are coming to life and Supreme has to fight them. So there's like a Popeye. What was Popeye's name? Poop Deck the Sailor. Yeah, I guess.
If it was like the actual Spider-Man comic, though, he wouldn't do anything at all ever.
Ever, nothing. God, it was really entertaining though. Reading like every single like panel ends with, not every panel, but every three ends with "see tomorrow" for our finale. Like, come back tomorrow. What's gonna happen? Oh God, how annoying would it have had to been to write for that, to a way where like a 3-panel chapter, like your chapters are 3 panels long. Like, what the fuck? What a style. Anyways,
I used to read the Spider-Man comic in the newspaper, like
Why?
for years.
well,
And it was like panel 1 was always recapping like the previous week's worth of stories. So you really only had like 2 panels to advance the story. That was an ordeal. But I read it for years.
Yep. And it's always literally, it was the structure was always like the 3 panels would be like, here's what's going on. Spidey worries about something. End of issue.
yeah,
Like the villain moves forward for this next step. End of issue.
yeah. Join us next time to see what's gonna happen.
Mary Jane is doing something that doesn't seem like it's related, but maybe they'll tie together.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
And then there's always a guest star, so they'll get one 3-panel script.
Yeah, how rough.
Oh, man.
There was also a nice little gallery of other comic book covers from like the Supreme years, which was again just the how rich these details are. Like there's Supreme, there's Supreme's girlfriend Judy Jordan, there's Kid Supreme, there's Advantage Comics, there's Actual Comics, America's Greatest Comics. Like I really liked seeing this history of when all these villains had their first appearances, even though they're not real. It's yeah.
It makes me
Really
sad
funny.
that there's issues after this by Alan Moore. Like I feel like this is like the end. Like this like,
does feel like the end. Yeah.
There's good stuff after this. I would encourage y'all to keep reading on your own time. I did like All-Star Superman made it. They do Judy Jordan in the Supreme kind of costume. But having read All-Star Superman, you're like, oh, this is just exactly what Lois's costume in the 60s was. And then Grant Morrison was like, oh, I'll do that.
Oh.
Interesting. So Alan Moore only did like 4 more issues of this afterwards, up to 56.
Well, and then there was the Return, which then
the Return, which came later. Yeah.
Well, no, Alan Moore did the Return.
Yeah, it happened fairly quickly after, and then the publisher, like issues 1 through 6, and then the publisher went under.
Yeah, he just didn't finish the storyline.
Interesting. I think we'll have to come back. Yeah.
The storyline gets done by someone else anyway. But let's finish. So
that's true. Let's finish the main storyline here.
Last we left Supreme, he's trapped in that mirror world. Darius Dax gets into a robot body of some kind
that has all the powers. That's perfectly designed to fight all the allies. So they're fucked.
So it's perfect. So you can't beat him. Only Supreme can beat him. It's perfect.
But then Supreme. It starts off with Suprema. She's like, hey, how long is this? Are y'all saving these newscasts? Yeah, we're saving them forever. Cool. Hey, somebody in 2497, the year 2497.
Yeah, come back and help us on this date.
This day, like 7:20 p.m. And the newscaster's like, you can't do that. And I'm like, there's a major catastrophe. You should trust the superheroes. Like, they know, like, all this weird shit's happening. Just let it happen. Like, I have integrity. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't just hijack my newscast. Come on.
So they show up. Batman and Robin show up.
The Legion shows up, or whatever it is. The Legion of Superheroes.
The Future Time Legion. That guy who grew into a million arms. And
the fractal Jimmy Olsen character from.
That's it.
But they dropped the line that he was in that same year, like an issue or 2 earlier. So I'm like, oh, Billy Friday's going to be coming back here.
Yeah, he's coming back. And of course, Supreme gets out. They do this weird. So here's where I was a little lost with the connection. So Darius Dax goes crazy on Supremium or whatever it's called, that stuff, and gets sent back in time. Like he melts back into time, and he becomes that character that we saw earlier during Suprema's origin, right?
He accidentally is the meteor that forms Supreme,
well,
just like Superman Red Sun.
Shit, it's all connected.
Well, yeah, first he's the Supremium Man, the original Supremium Man.
And then he melts out and goes even further back.
Yeah, who then was the origin of Suprema in the 50s. And then he goes even further back to the 20s, and he's the origin of Supreme as just an inanimate meteor.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Good stuff.
If Mark Miller hadn't ruined this for me with Red Sun, I would have been a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of neat, but I'm being a little sarcastic. It didn't necessarily blow my mind. I was hoping for something maybe a little bit more. I don't know, but I was also happy with it because the big mystery also kind of wasn't the big point of it. It was all those fun little side moments and aping that style throughout the ages, which was just perfect.
I did also really like, and I don't even think it gets paid off in Alan Moore's run, but the villain, the End, that's in his Phantom Zone thing, all the other villains are like, hey, we saved Supreme for you. If you want to kill him, that'll be the end, I guess. And he's like, get out of here. So it's just setting up that this villain is like, y'all aren't even worth my time. This isn't the time that we're going to kill Supreme. Some other time, maybe.
I forgot to mention my favorite detail, which just came back to me. It's during the big mouse one where he's gathering all the different ones. They always talk about their Sight Supreme and their all that sort of this Supreme, that Supreme. One of them that has the Substance Abuse Supreme. I really found that detail highly amusing. Had to throw that out there. I kind of feel like is there anything else we have to cover here? Any other details?
I like how it sounds so stupid, but then you think about the fact that, like, I mean, I know super had a meaning before Superman, but super just became an adjective because of Superman.
Yeah, it really did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the reason we say, super as, with a
Super
hyphen
Nintendo
is because of Superman. Like that, why would we be using it? We wouldn't be like Overman or Above Man.
Really? So nobody said Super Duper before Superman?
Like he literally, and stuff like, the word kryptonite is, used by people in the English language, literally just made up.
I'm gonna have to consult with a linguist on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But,
so when did the periodic element Krypton come out? Before or after Superman?
I would say before, probably.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What's going on here? Come on. I need a chemist. I need a linguist.
A chemist, linguist, and a comic book nerd walk into a bar.
But it's crazy. And so it's just this parallel world where everybody just says the blank Supreme.
Oh, that's funny.
Which sounds so stupid. But it's just, in this world, that's what they say instead of super blank. Comet the Super Horse.
Nope, it's the Horse Supreme.
The Cutlass Supreme.
Yep.
Taco Supreme.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I was really pleased with this comic, Chris. Good pick.
Yeah, good pick.
We spent a whole month on this comic. Good job.
It's really fun. It's to me, what I really like about it is, like, I really love Promethea, which I don't think we've read. But I also really love, stuff like Top 10 and some of the other kind of more fun stuff that Alan Moore has done. Tom Strong, although I think Tom Strong is a little denser sometimes. I have trouble following what's going on in it. Which it's supposed to be just fun action, but I don't know, 1930s heroes. So I feel like stuff is going over my head, which I know it shouldn't bother me, but it kind of does.
Yeah.
Now you know how everyone else feels, not knowing every detail of every comic.
I know.
Come on.
But it's a good mix of, there's a lot of just really fun, you don't need this stuff, but then it's just, there's so much kind of richness to it where, you don't need to know, if some millennial picks up this book, they might not know who Mighty Mouse is, so they might not know what that was a reference to.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's true. That's fair.
But if you do know, you're like, oh, this is extra funny because I never thought that Mighty Mouse and Marv from Sin City would play soft.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this overall as well. I think I threw out all of my favorite details, but yeah, I highly encourage reading this. If you are a comic bird aficionado, then read up this comic bird.
Falcon, I like him.
Yeah, I was gonna say Falcon.
Thunderbird.
Yeah, that's my new catchphrase. Read up this comic. Yeah, I think before we go, no, next time, no more two-parters, I guess. We'll see. We'll probably do another two-parter again. That was fun. But next time, what's that?
Hawk and Dove.
Are you still talking about comic birds?
He's a comic book nerd. Comic book nerd.
Oh my! Now I sound like a Swedish chef.
So we're doing Scrooge McDuck or Donald Duck comics next time, right? Lifetime is a Scrooge McDuck. Oh
no! Next time it's you're really excited about DuckTales. You're like on board for this new show. We'll do some more Scrooge McDuck stuff soon, but more importantly, Wonder Woman is coming out. So we're gonna do some Wonder Woman stuff. We are going to read the George Perez run from the late 80s, like after Crisis, the first kind of, I guess, modern Wonder Woman to come out, right?
Yeah, she was she was just off the table after Crisis, and they said, well, we're waiting for George Perez to write her. So she just wasn't in comics for a couple of years.
Yeah, so a nice big reset, which should be a good jumping on point. We're going to do the first 6 issues of that. So I think it's like 1987, 1988, somewhere around there. So
we all know the best year of comics.
Or the worst.
Yeah. Batman Year 1 and Year 2 came out in 87, so.
Interesting. So who knows? Could this be the best? Could this be the worst? We'll have to wait and see.
I was going to say, it was the year that comics started trying to be serious.
Yeah. That's
for better or for worse.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
So I'm excited to read some Wonder Woman, some good old George Perez Wonder Woman. He writes and draws it.
Yeah. I've always wanted to kind of read more stuff from this era of DC, this post-crisis era where, everything is just kind of really firing for them. I think, it's kind of, a lot of people might argue, one of DC's best eras. So, excited to get into it.
And we've done George Perez as an artist before in Teen Titans and I think Avengers?
Maybe. Yeah. Did he do Under Siege? No.
Oh, that Ultron stuff, though, I think?
Yeah, he did do Ultron.
Yeah.
Ultron Unlimited, our second episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool. So join us for that. It'll be a good time. You don't have to see the movie, or maybe you will. Vince, you're gonna go. Vince, you're probably gonna go see.
Oh yeah, we're on the docket. We still haven't seen Guardians yet, though. So
I haven't seen Guardians yet either. Well, we should probably maybe do something reading up on the.
I tried to start reading Annihilation, and I just couldn't get into it this week. So
there's so much. We got to pick something simple to read. So we'll see. We'll get to that.
Yeah, but there's Guardians, Alien, Wonder Woman's all coming up in the next month.
Boy, look at that.
So we got a lot going on, and Defenders trailer's out now, so may have to catch up on some of those shows.
I was really hating on Iron Fist there. It didn't turn out as bad as I thought it was going to. Definitely the worst of all the TV shows by far, but
something has to be the worst.
Yeah, something has to be the worst. Exactly. Plus, you get more of the Rosario Dawson storylines, and really, she's the star of all the shows, so that's cool. Yeah, good times. Anyways, we should get out of here. I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed.
Yep.
Go Spurs, go!
Dream of the comic birds. Good night. Good night, all my comic birds. See you next time.